has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast.
Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money.
It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
All right, so you're going to want to get the SportsGrid app on iOS or Android in the Play Store. It's free. You're going to love it. You can watch the network on the app. You can listen to the network on the app. It's got in-game odds. It's got it all. Plus, you can follow your favorite hosts. You want to check us out on X. We're streaming now. Just go to SportsGrid-Live, and you can watch SportsGrid all day long, streaming on X. Hey, did you know you can get the Ferrall Coast to Coast and Ferrall on a Bench podcasts on iTunes every day, Monday through Friday? The full 3-hour C2C and a quick blast through sports of what happened and what's happening on Ferrall on a Bench. They're both on iTunes. Go get them today. Tonight on SportsGrid, after this show at 6 East, you got GTD with the Kevin Walsh. And then it's Wetzel and Sherapan, the law firm, on In-Game Live from 8 to 10. And then Morency on Sports Rage from 10 to midnight. Also on SportsGrid Radio, Carver and Lisi from 8 to 10. All tonight on SportsGrid TV and SportsGrid Radio. We're in the middle hour of C2C on a Tuesday, and we're still talking about the big game Thursday night between Canada and the U.S. and the odds for that game. Have they changed at all? What are they?
Yeah, let me give you those, and then we'll move on to some basketball. Of course, really no change from even when they met Saturday night in terms of the money line. Minus 110 both ways. I'll pick them for these two. I know we got a couple. I got that at this very second. I know we got 113 and 106 up there now. But the total is different from Saturday. Remember, we had that big 6.5, and the game stayed under 5.5 for this title game on Thursday night.
Wow, that's brutal. Do you think it's going to be another low-scoring game, or do you think they can score 6 goals?
I think it's the same game as Saturday. I think it's 3-1, 3-2, 2-1. I think it's right down. I don't think you're going to see much difference from the type of game that was played on Saturday night.
I don't know, man. They're both so dangerous. I know it was 3-1. I know it was 1-1. I know it was 2-1, then the empty netter. But they're both so dangerous. You know, Canada's bragging about, we're going to get more pucks on the net. We're going to get more traffic in front of the net. And you've seen them do it. They did it to, Finland. I mean, they lit them up, and they can score in droves, and I think the USA can score. I don't know. I'm just not ready to make that bet yet. I feel like I still think there's a chance it goes over 5.5. You could be right, obviously. And I think it should be 110 both ways. I don't think it's easy. I told you I thought, I wanted the USA to win. I thought Canada was the better bet on Saturday. And then, going into this game, I think the whole world thinks it's Canada and that it's, they're the better bet. But I'm not willing to do that yet. I want to see the USA back it up with another win. They beat them once, beat them again. We see it all the time.
I think they have more skill and they're faster. I think the United States are going to play a similar style. They are the more physical team than Canada. And I think that the way that you could stop guys like that is you got to hit them. You got to whack them around. And that's usually the way to slow them up. So I'm with you. You know where I'm going. I'm on the United States coming up here on Thursday.
Well, I certainly hope that Matt and Brady Tkachuk aren't beat up from those fights they got in, because if they're saying they're so banged up, they need, and they've, already lost McAvoy. They if everyone's so beat, and they're saying Matthews is beat up, and he's not a hitter to begin with. He's a scorer. So the deal is, if they're guys that are the hitters, which is what Matty and Brady are, and McAvoy's gone, they got a serious problem. If physicality is what you want and no one can hit because they're all banged up, then they're in trouble.
They need the Tkachuk brothers to be the Tkachuk brothers on Thursday night, like they were on Saturday, like they were in the first game of the tournament. That's the only way they're winning. Those guys are key to what the Americans need to do in that game. But as we've said, they got plenty of time to heal up. Not playing until Thursday night. So keep giving him the treatment, and they'll be ready to go. All right, some basketball stuff for you. Obviously, the NBA is not going to get back going until tomorrow night. One game, Lakers, Hornets, and then Thursday night back to a full slate of games. But I do have some stuff from. So you sent me this story last night, and I looked. You even wrote on the story. You're like, "Is this real?" And I went, "I don't know. Sometimes there's so much stuff out there on the internet, you have no idea." So you know what I did? I went right to the source, Scotty. I said, let's find out straight from the horse's mouth. Kyrie Irving wanting to play for Australia in the next Olympics. It's true.
Now, Kyrie, you've teased about playing for Australia in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to finally pull the trigger and maybe represent Australia at the next Olympics?
Man, we're in the process of that right now, just trying to figure out what's going to be the best route for me to be eligible. You know, there's a lot of paperwork in between that. You know, obviously USA still has a decision to make. Team USA still has a decision to make. But for me, I'm just trying to do what's best for me. And honestly, if I can be an Aussie at one point in my career, play for the Australian team, that would be great, man.
Yeah, I just can't figure this dude out, honestly. Like,
Well,
I mean, what is happening here? Like, so he's going to go play for Australia in Los Angeles in the Olympics.
Well, because I think he's still upset that they didn't bring him last year in Paris. I think he was upset about that. I think he felt he was worthy of being on that team that went to Paris. So I think there's some bad feelings there. He kind of left the door open. You heard him say, we'll see what the United States wants to do. Now, remember, that's still 3 years from now that they're going to play that Olympics. And is his game still going to be where it is now 3 years from now? Maybe, maybe not. But I think he wants to play in that Olympics in L.A. And if the United States ain't going to have him on the team, he going to go play for somebody. Not going to be Australia.
Yeah, you're right. Like, let's face facts. He's going to be old in 3 years. So go ahead and play for Australia and lose.
I find it hard to believe that
Go play with
they would
Ben
have
Simmons
him.
and lose in the Olympics. It'll be fun to watch.
He'll be 35. He's 32 now, so he'll be 35 for that Olympics. Actually, he'll be 36 because he's turning 33 next month in March. So he'll be 36 at the 28 Olympics in L.A.
I still think he's a great player. I told you yesterday he'd win a one-on-one in the NBA. I think he's the best one-on-one player in the league. No one can guard him. But, I mean, 3 years when you're 36, name how many guys at 36 are still the best player, at their position in the league. They're not. They just aren't. That's the whole deal. There's one LeBron James.
Right.
And don't tell me listen, Michael Jordan was not the same player when he came back after baseball. I don't care what anybody says. That's just all there is to it. He had like 140-point night with the Wizards. That was it. I mean, what did he do?
So, yeah. Well, Durant and Curry were on the team this past summer, and they were both 35, 36 years old on the Paris team. So that's three old guys, quote unquote, in LeBron, Curry, and Durant that they just had.
Well, one's the best shooter in the world, and the other one is 7 foot tall, and there isn't a guy on earth that can block his shot. I don't care how old you are. All he has to do is jump and shoot, and no one can block him.
They've had 36-year-olds on the team just this last year. They did have it. I don't think Kyrie will be on the U.S. team 3 years from now when they go to Los Angeles.
I don't either.
Speaking of KD, he said that he would rather cancel All-Star Weekend than all the other stuff people talk about because all everyone does is complain about it. Did he watch the I know he was playing it. I mean, go back and watch the broadcast. I mean, that's why people are complaining about it.
Listen, are we entitled to complain about something that sucked as bad as that event? We certainly are. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. If something sucks and you don't say it, then how candy ass are you? Like, I didn't like it. I went to Ball, right, on Monday after that. There wasn't one guy. And I played with some of the greatest players you've ever seen in your life. And there wasn't one guy that liked it. Not one guy. All they did was say it sucked. Everyone. And then today I heard people saying the same thing 2 days later that it sucked.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So I don't know if you have these stats, but I was blown away when I saw what Zubats was doing with the Clippers this year. Like, I think most people in the East Coast are in bed when this guy is playing with Harden and Kawhi, etc., and Norman Powell. But man, is this guy putting together a career and a season in LA at the Intuit with the Clippers. His numbers are staggering.
The numbers are ridiculous. Let me give you some of them. He's second in most offensive rebounds. That's among 533 qualified players. He's third in clutch field goal percentage among 162 qualified players. He's third with the most rebounds. He's fourth in the most paint points. He's fourth in the most blocks in the clutch, however they decide that. He's fifth in field goal percentage on tight contested. He's fifth in second chance points. He's sixth with the most double-doubles in the NBA this year. Man, you talk about doing all that rather quietly.
That's one category, the double-doubles, one category outside the top 5 rankings in every category for bigs. Yeah. And I think the blocks in the clutch are late-game blocks when the game is on the line with under 2 minutes left. This guy is turning into a stud.
He really is. Your boy Zubac on the late night, getting it done out at LA with the Clippers. All right, so there's no NBA today, so I figured I'd give you your at the break updated look at all of these different things. And then tomorrow I have a few other things before the Lakers and the Hornets get the season back going. To win it all at the break, Celtics and Thunder, miles away from everybody else. And then the Cavs, Nuggets, Knicks, Lakers, Bucks, Grizzlies. Some big numbers with those teams a little further down the board. But Celtics and Thunder are your favorites.
I mean, look, every time I've watched Boston, when they want to win, they win. When they want to play, they can flick the switch, AC/DC style. Flick of the switch, they are pouring in buckets and scoring from everywhere. And they literally are 10 deep. I mean, their third string center, Cornette, is a monster. I mean, the guy will get every rebound, put back, dunk, and hang from the rim with his legs and his onions in your face. The kid Pritchard, he's 14 a game coming off the bench. He's like, in my world, sixth man. I mean, this guy comes in every night and just deals. There's no one beating that team in the East. No one. I don't care about the Cavaliers' record, the Knicks. The Knicks can't stop a runny nose. The Knicks are exciting, except they give up 148 points a game. So forget about that. The Thunder are the most exciting team with, in my opinion, the Rockets and the Grizzlies. And you see the Grizzlies at 34-1. The Lakers are 18-1 because they have Luka. I won't deny if you have Luka and LeBron and Reeves, the Lakers are a problem. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny you have, Gordon, Porter, Murray, and Joker. You have a problem on your hands. 13-1, the Nuggets. And the experience of winning a championship. The Nuggets are better than the Rockets and the Grizzlies when it comes down to it in playoff time. They got the Joker, and they got a ring. That's just all there is to it. The West is, like LeBron said, the wild, wild West. It's wide open, and it's going to determine, I think, who ends up being the champion, because no one in the East is beating the Boston Celtics. Like, whenever they want to play, they're just going to do you.
Speaking of the Grizzlies, I saw a story today, and obviously these stories get all thrown around all over the place, that the Grizzlies would look to shop Ja Morant this summer. That's going to be like their summer thing. They're going to try to shop Ja Morant around. Still pretty young. I know he's had some problems off the court.
That's just a gigantic mistake, and whoever's saying that is drunk. Look, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a great player, but I think they sell tickets because of Ja Morant. And listen, I get it. He was crazy. He's young. He was stupid. He's running around and rapping and twirling guns. Not cool. I think he's actually learned his lesson. He understands he's big business. He's got shoe deals with Nike. He's got endorsements out the Ying. He's a winner. He's an exciting player. If he does it again, his career's over. If he doesn't do it again, the sky's the limit. There's no way I trade him if I'm the Memphis Grizzlies. No way. I mean, they did the right things, like, get rid of Smart, get rid of these guys that don't matter. You cannot get rid of a guy that's that good and that young. I'm sorry. And the reason that the Mavericks gave up on Luka Doncic was they think he's fat, and they think he doesn't care. And they think that he's out of shape and will only get worse as he gets older. And they think that Anthony Davis is the true big they need to win. They've already got 4 bigs now, and they got the best big in the league. But he's always injured. So we'll see if he plays during the playoffs. That's all that matters. He's injured now for the next month. I think Luka Doncic is unstoppable. He's a whiny crybaby B, but he is unstoppable. And that's why they dealt him. They got sick of him not listening, rolling his eyes. He don't listen to nobody. He doesn't listen to the owners, the GM, the coach. He don't listen to Jason Kidd. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world. He don't listen to nobody except himself. Ja Morant is too young and too good to give up on. And he's in great shape, and he's a badass. All I have to say is, did you see him climb Wembanyama and dunk in his face? And you want to trade that guy? You must be stupid. Done. I'm done with it. I'm not having it.
MVP's pretty quick, and then I'll give you the rest.
Too. Like, he's a badass.
SGA and Joker. That's it on the MVP. That's who's going to be running for that down there.
Can we just give it to Shea for once? We've already given the Joker 3 of them and Embiid. Everybody's got an MVP. Can we give one to a guy that actually deserves it?
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, what about Defensive Player of the Year, Mike?
Yes, of course, Defensive Player of the Year. We've talked about this a little bit. Victor Wembanyama has more than wrapped this up. If you could see that right there, that's a minus 2,400. He's basically won the award, and we have 2 months to go in the season. So I know that upsets Anthony Davis, and he thinks there's a narrative. He's the best defensive player in the league. He should have won last year.
Yeah, listen, I think that's going to stay that way for a number of years. If he's on the floor and he's healthy, there's no one like him in the league. The amount of block shots, listen, I said it last year that they give it to Gobert, and the kid was already better than Gobert then. So you don't even hear about Gobert anymore. There's only one guy that's the king of swats. It's him.
That's it. Rookie of the Year. Castle is the favorite from the Spurs, as they now have him at Player You Go, plus $120. Ware right there with him. Richeche, Wells, Sarr, Edie a little far back now at 17.
Yeah, I don't think that it's that simple. I really don't. I don't think that has been determined yet. There's 30 games left, and look, I think Castle's a good player. I'm not going to deny that, but let's calm down like he's dominating in the NBA and all rookies. I mean, I've seen a lot of, Richeche. I think that Edie has looked good at times. Whenever Klingon plays, he's a just absolute beast. Now that he's getting minutes, the guy's just going off every night. When they won 11 straight, whatever it was, covers, the guy was dominating. I'm not ready to secede yet and pick a Rookie of the Year at all. I do not believe for 1 minute that he's got a clear-cut award in his hands. I just don't see that.
Yeah, I think that any of those guys there, that could be one where you finish strong. You finish strong down there in your last 2 months, 6 weeks, and you can put up some big numbers. You can go ahead and get that award. That is not out of the question for any of those guys. Most improved player, We talked about this a couple weeks ago. They have Cade Cunningham as the favorite, but really Cade Cunningham and Norman Powell are the two guys. Minus 115 for Cade right now, plus $110 for Norm Powell, and then everybody else pretty far out of sight. You know, we were mentioning Cade a few weeks back. I've listened to some people who kind of have talked about this and broke down some of the numbers, Scotty. I love Cade Cunningham, but Norman Powell, his points per game is it's like 11 or 12 more this year than last year. Like, you talk about most improved. That's a pretty big jump. That's substantial what Powell's done, moving his points per game from 12 to 23.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny what Norm is doing in L.A. with the Clips. He's been phenomenal. But I'm going to say this. We talked about this before. Cade Cunningham has done what I think Oscar Robertson and Luka have done only. In the amount of games that he has put up the numbers that he's put up, staggering numbers in points, rebounds, assists of, two guys have done what he's done. So I think it's going to be hard pressed to beat him for most improved when he's done that in 3 years. In 3 years and in that many games, he has done phenomenal things. So it's clear to me that he's the most improved player in the NBA based on the numbers. I think, for me, Norm is putting up big bucket numbers, scoring a lot. He's a pure shooter scorer. That's great, and there's no doubt about it, but he's kind of always been that guy. He's always been a guy with 20, 30 a game. He's a shooter. And I think Cade Cunningham has actually turned into a savage player, and he's turned the Pistons around by himself.
Luke's going to be mad at me. I skipped sixth man. It was Peyton Pritchard's the favorite at minus 160
like
for that.
I said.
With Peyton Pritchard.
Earlier, I said it, and I didn't know you were doing this. He is so unbelievable, that guy. I hate his guts because he plays for the Celtics, and I wish to God he was on the Knicks. He's just a phenomenal basketball player for his size. And he was that way in Eugene, too.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn, we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
corner here, Mike, into the second half of the show on a Tuesday from New York City. I'm Ferrall with Carver High, and we're talking college rack and other basketball tidbits, certainly lingering from the NBA.
Yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to give you, and of course we know how much we love talking about broadcasters and them moving and such. Reggie Miller joins the NBC crew next year. He's, of course, there's going to be no more TNT, so he'll go to the NBC NBA.
I think he'll call. I think he'll be the lead analyst on NBC, probably. And I think Melo's going to be in studio.
Yes, Melo will definitely be in studio. I'm not the biggest Reggie Miller fan as a broadcaster. I don't think he's that. Like, he does a lot of like just yell stuff out of like cheering and yelling like there. You can remember how you were talking like a week or two ago about learning something when you're watching the game from the analysts. You were talking about Hubie and those guys. I don't feel that way with Reggie Miller. I don't feel like I'm learning anything.
Yeah, because he's cheering for big plays, shots, and dunks. And
that's it.
He's like a fan of the game that's calling the game. So he's more of a cheerleader.
That's that's why a lot of times he has a third person with him too. You notice that Reggie has a third man on his team because you're really not getting a lot of the big breakdown. College rack. There was only a couple games last night. Duke beat Virginia cover 80-62. Cooper Flagg 17 points and 14 boards in the win. And let's take it a little further. He now has 450 plus points, 150 plus boards, 100 plus dimes, 40 plus steals, 25 blocks through his first 25 games. The only two guys who have ever done that in the season. Dwayne Wade in 02-03 and Ben Simmons in 15-16. Cooper Flagg. He had some big ACC record too, Scotty, with all those numbers.
Listen, first of all, Ben Simmons was young and healthy at LSU at that point. And then, Dwayne Wade, same thing. Spectacular, I think, career in the NBA for Wade. I think unspectacular for Simmons. I thought Simmons was good in his early years in Philly. And I think the last several years, the rest of his career has been a disaster. And I know he went out and had a good game with the Clippers. Food for thought. It won't last. He never stays healthy. It's always something, and it'll happen again. But look, Cooper Flagg, what he's done at Duke is the expected. This is exactly what was expected of him when he was playing in Maine. This kid was so spectacular and special and different and unique and stood out like a sore thumb. Someone said, live during a game, Dick Vitale, it was when they were playing Clemson. He said he's 18 years old. Can you imagine he should be playing high school basketball? Can you imagine how unfair it is to have that guy playing high school basketball this year? He's playing at Duke at 18. He should be a senior in high school playing against kids. And, I have seen some of the best high school basketball players in the country. I go to basketball games. I've been to some of the best games in New York City, in Jersey. I've been to some of the best in Indiana. I've been to some of the best in California and in Florida, in Miami. And I have never seen anything like that kid playing high school basketball. It's flat out unfair. I mean, it is unfair. Now, you know what bothers me about the coverage of this guy? So last night he has a double-double, and he was amazing. And yet all they showed was him getting rejected on that tomahawk dunk he went in for in a game that they blew out Virginia in Charlottesville. The only highlight they showed of him was him getting rejected. Well, which is it? Are you going to knob him like you do every other day, or are you going to humiliate him by showing him getting rejected? Let me tell you something. Every player that plays basketball in their life gets rejected, and they think nothing of it when you play. This isn't some kind of video game where they talk Shaq after they block you and get that Shaq out of here. That stuff, you say that in the hood, someone's going to punch you in the mouth. You get blocked, you just say, nice block. People block shots all the time. I played today. I blocked some guy's shot. No big deal. Get the rebound, kick it out, go. So showing him getting swatted last night, but yet you knob him every other night. Which is it? Do you love him or do you want to humiliate the kid? He's 18 years old. Those stats that he put up at Duke are embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, he makes Christian Laettner like didn't even exist. I mean, honestly, Christian Laettner was like the greatest player that ever played at Duke. Am I crazy? They show him still to this day with his big shot against Kentucky. This kid's so much better than him, it's not even funny. And he did it as a freshman. He's better than Christian Laettner as a senior.
Incredible numbers. Incredible numbers for Cooper Flagg this year. Duke did lose forward Malik Brown, dislocated shoulder as well in the game last night. Arizona was a short dog in Waco. They won outright 74-67 for the Cats. Utah beat Kansas State. What a rough trip for Kansas State. They lose in Provo and in Utah. AP Top 25 for this week. Of course, Auburn's 1, Florida 2, Duke 3, Alabama 4, and Houston 5 for this. The Johnnies fell to 10, even though they didn't then get a win. They bounced back on Sunday, getting themselves a win over.
Every one of those teams is going to the NCAA tournament on that entire list.
That is correct. There's no question about that. All right, I have this for you because you love stuff like this, and I don't think you've seen this yet, so I want to give it to you. In honor of Tom Izzo becoming the winningest coach in the Big Ten over the weekend. Here we go. A list that was put out. Top 10 greatest coaches, basketball coaches in Big Ten history, according to people who think they know. Ward Lambert, Lou Henson, Bo Ryan, Judd Heathcote, Matt Painter, Gene Cady, Fred Taylor, Branch McCracken, Tom Izzo, and number 1, the General. Bob Knight at number 1. There it is.
Well,
the greatest coaches in Big Ten history.
Listen, obviously, I would agree with that without a doubt. And Branch McCracken won 2 national championships at Indiana as well. I love Gene Cady. Heathcote was a great coach. Bo Ryan as well. I think Matt Painter's had a hell of a 20 years in West Lafayette. I wouldn't argue with that. Lou Henson was the stuff of legend in Champaign. That's all there is to it. Izzo's got to be there. He's passed Bob Knight now and wins. That's because Indiana stupidly fired Bob Knight. Miles Brand, the dumbest move in sports history to fire that guy. I'll never – listen, the guy's dead, Brand, and I'm glad. Like, I hated him. Everyone hates his guts in Bloomington. Everyone at Indiana that ever went to Indiana hates that guy dead in effigy. Dead. He's dead, and they still talk bad about him. That's how much people hated him. Not only that, he ran the NCAA into the ground. Don't get me started. Every time you mention that guy's name, this is what happens to me. I get all kinds of worked up. I need to move on right now or it's only going to get worse.
And now we wait for who will be the Big Ten head coach that breaks what has now been, what are we at now, 24, 25 years since the Big Ten basketball team won the national championship, right? 2000, Michigan State.
They don't care because they win national championships now in football.
That's all that matters. You have those football national championships. All right, when we come back, I've got a lot of games tonight, but I'll start with I think who tweeted this first? Dick Vitale about Tony Bennett and Indiana. So we will talk about that.
We talked about it before. We talked about Tony Bennett before being a possibility, and now Dick has obviously thrown his name out there that that's who they should hire. That's no secret to anyone. If they could snag Tony Bennett, it would be a huge hire.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom it definitely is more deliberate in his conversations. Always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, Mike. Now, look, the first thing, it's so funny because the first thing a guy reached out to me and said, what do you think of Tony Bennett? I said, 40 games in Bloomington, as long as they get the 45, people will be happy. Secondly, I think that if they got Tony Bennett, they would have the best defense they've had since Bob Knight. Indiana won 3 national championships. They won perfect season in 76 because of one reason. Defense. Bob Knight coached defense, and he had a motion offense. I know him like the back of my hand, believe me you. And Indiana has never had any defense since they fired him. In fact, they haven't won since they fired him. And remember, Davis's team went to the finals against Maryland and lost with Bob Knight's team. Let's stop with all this Mike Davis is a great coach bullshit. Okay? So if they got him, they would go back to defense first, which would be what they like in Bloomington. And here's the other thing. I think if they get him, it's because they have, deep pockets. They spend NIL in football and they spend it in basketball. Believe it or not, they spent a lot of money on this basketball team that sucks this year. Omar Ballo, they paid him a lot of money to come to Bloomington from Arizona. So they will spend money on basketball in Bloomington more than in Charlottesville with Virginia. I think Tony Bennett quit and retired because they wouldn't give him the money and the budget, and he was not interested in NIL or transfer portal, where every kid wants to play, and if he doesn't, he quits and leaves in an instant. At Indiana, they win national championships. He won one at Virginia, and how did he win at Virginia? With defense. So I think that if they could get Tony Bennett, it would be the best hire that's out there. I've been clamoring for Mick Cronin. It's not going to happen. Mick Cronin's winning. He's going to be a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament with the Bruins, and he's in Los Angeles at Pauley Pavilion. He's basically where Wooden did his damage. I've always said, who would ever walk away from the UCLA job? Who would ever walk away from an Indiana job if you won? Who would ever walk away from Kentucky if you won? Denny Crum would have never left Louisville. All he did was win. All these other guys lose. That's the problem. They aren't as good. Tony Bennett would be an incredible hire for Indiana if they could get their hands on him. I've heard all this Texas Tech coach, and Brad Stevens was never leaving the Celtics. Who leaves a cushy gig when you're winning championships and you're sitting in the front office and you don't have to coach anymore? I never thought for 1 second Brad Stevens would go to Bloomington, Indiana to coach the Indiana Hoosiers. And if he does, stunningly behind my back, after he's already said it's not happening, I'll keel over. I really will. I never thought he would take that job. Could they get Tony Bennett interested? With their deep pockets, I think they might.
I also saw the other day somebody suggest that maybe they would try to pry Scott Drew out of Baylor. Scott Drew in Baylor has won a national championship. Want to pry him out of there?
Listen, I don't deny that he's done a great job at Baylor. Title, and he never played. He never played high school basketball. He never played college basketball. He's just a coach. His family's filled with coaches. He's a great coach. I don't know. I don't know if he would leave Baylor for Indiana. He's won a title there, and it's been a long time since 1987 that they've won. I certainly think that they have plenty of money in Texas at Baylor to pay players, and there's no doubt about it. So I think that might be a harder pry than getting Tony Bennett interested, sitting on his couch, getting ready to watch conference tournaments and NCAA tournaments. You might be able to spark his interest because it is Indiana. It is Indiana. People can say whatever they want. You can make fun of me all you want. Have at it. I am certain that I'm right. There is still something to be said about coaching basketball at Indiana University. It is one of the great institutions in college basketball history with 5 national championships. Believe me, effing you.
There you go. How about tonight? Let's go. I've got a bunch of racks of games. This is much better. We love Tuesday nights in college basketball. Villanova going up to see UConn. This game is at the XL in Hartford tonight. UConn minus 8.5. We've got this too now with the 136.5. Oklahoma takes the trip to number 2 Florida. Another big number here. 13.5 for the Gators in this one. Total in the mid 150s. Texas A&M into Stark Vegas against Mississippi State tonight. Bulldogs minus 2.5. Purdue into East Lansing. Sparty minus 3.5 against the Boilermakers.
All right, let's start this up. I think UConn, coming off the Seton Hall loss, will take it out on Villanova tonight in Hartford. I think Florida will cover the number against Oklahoma and whack them in Gainesville. I know they're 16-9. They're really not that good. I've watched them play. Florida is too legit to quit. Believe me, I am going to take the Aggies on the road tonight in Stark Vegas. I flat out think they're better than Mississippi State and Purdue, Michigan State at the Breslin. Christ, I saw Indiana beat them there. But I saw Purdue get whacked by Wisconsin at Mackey. 2 straight L's for the Boilermakers. I think the Spartans beat them tonight in East Lansing.
I love Florida tonight. I just wanted to say, every time Oklahoma has played one of the heavies in the SEC, they have been thumped. Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, they all whacked Oklahoma when they played them. I expect Florida to do the same tonight against them there. Syracuse visiting Pitt this evening. Colorado heads to Iowa State against the Cyclones. Texas Tech and TCU this evening as well. And Butler and Xavier, minus 7.5 for the Musketeers.
All right, so I think Pitt's going to win that game going away at the Peterson Event Center. Iowa State is going to beat up on Colorado at the Hilton. Texas Tech will win at Fort Worth. And I think they actually cover the 7.5. I think they're flat out better. That's all there is to it. And then Butler, Xavier. I like Xavier at the Cintas, but yeah, I'll lay the 7.5, but it'll be close.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins. St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
I'll say that quickly, Mike. The greatest experience of my life was being around Bob Knight and 5 years of Indiana basketball. People say, why did you go there for 5 years? So I said, well, I easily could have been done in 4, but I made sure I didn't get done in 4 so I could go back for a 5th year. So what happened was in '86, they lost to Cleveland State, and it would have been my last game. And I said, well, screw that. I mean, he was so mad. I'll never forget after that game. I thought he was going to make us all walk home from the NCAA tournament. He was that mad. Like, I went in the locker room and he threw me out and called me all kinds of dirty names. And I had nothing to do with it, but he's still, he'll blame anyone he sees. The guy's temper was like nothing you've ever seen. It was like right out of a movie. And like worse than anything you've ever seen in life. You've never known anyone, guaranteed, that had a temper worse than this guy. And then, but I admired him, so I looked up to him, and I didn't care that he called me bad names and cussed me out. Then I covered the Pittsburgh Steelers after that. So I went back to the 5th year, and they won the national championship. The last game I covered was Smart shot to beat Syracuse. Then I covered the Steelers for 3 years, and the only year they were good was that 89 year when they went to the Denver, the divisional semi, and lost in the last second to the Broncos. But on New Year's Eve, they had beaten the Oilers on a 51-yarder in overtime from Gary Anderson. So I saw one good year of Steelers, but 2 bad years where I traveled with them and all they did was lose. And they weren't any good. They had Bubby Brister, blah, blah, blah. But nothing topped, for me in my life, being around Bob Knight for 5 years. And there's just nothing like it. When I was at Indiana, and I went back 30 years later and saw him play, it was still cool. I loved it. It was great. I went with my son. It was a special night. But it wasn't the same as when I was there, because when I went back, it was kind of hillbilly for me. I'm from New York City. I mean, I can't be around a bunch of farmers. No offense. I'm not even being rude. Like, I went down there and I'm just too intense, too fast, too everything for Indiana. Indiana's really, it's throwback. It's farmers and it's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to do there except go to Indiana basketball games. I'm telling you, going to Assembly Hall was better than sex. It was the greatest experience of my life, going every night to Indiana basketball games in that building, full house, not a seat to be had, cheerleaders doing flips, the band playing, nothing matched it. I've been doing this 41 years. Nothing even comes close to it. And so if you have an opportunity to coach there, do it. Like, it'll change your life. Even Woodson, I think they treated like crap at the end. I know Mike Woodson loved playing there for Bob Knight, and I know he loved coaching there, and I think they screwed him. And I don't think they're going to hire anyone until he's gone and the season's over and he's back home, because they've already dissed him once. They told him they're going to fire him. That's why he left. So they're not going to do him again and hire someone right now.
No, and that's exactly what went on. They told him, this is what's happening. How do you want to do this? And he decided, as you expect from Mike, to take the classy way out. Which is what Mike Woodson likes to do. Illinois visiting Wisconsin tonight in Madtown.
I love this game, Mike. I love this game. You can't tell me that you're not on the Badgers tonight at the goal. Illinois is on Wisconsin, but not this team. This is a great guard-driven team that gets to the 10. They kick Purdue's ass. They're going to beat that shorthanded Illinois team tonight in Madtown, as sure as I'm sitting here.
Houston is out in the desert. Tempe against Arizona State this evening. Seton Hall, off the win against UConn, now has to go to Marquette. They're getting some heavy lumber in that game. And Kansas, who lost at Utah the other night, they're in Provo against BYU. BYU favored this evening.
Yeah, I like BYU in Provo as well. But I'll tell you what, after Seton Hall beat UConn, they got to be sky high. Give me the 18.5. At the Fiserv in Brewtown against Marquette. Marquette wins, doesn't cover. Same thing. Houston's going to win that game in Tempe, but they don't cover the 11 and a hook. Bobby Hurley's team will show up for that game tonight in the desert, as sure as I'm sitting here again. I'm telling you, that's going to be a great game. I like Houston to barely win that game.
I have one other rack that I'll do at the top of the hour, and if there's any other stragglers, there's a lot of other games tonight.
A lot of stragglers.
That I didn't even mention here. So we will do all of that when we come back, and then we'll get into, I got spring training notes for you. I've got some football notes for you. You got coach in the last hour as well. So we have a lot of things to do, a lot going on.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs have a 5.5 game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5 game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins. St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.